All right, welcome. It's a new episode of Breaking the Safe with professional Scrum trainers, me, Ryan Ripley, and Yuval Yeret, and also Safe Fellow, Yuval Yeret. So, Yuval, you came back. So happy you joined us again. Actually, really appreciate the community's warm reception to the videos. Lots of really great questions. And that's what we wanted. We want your pushback. We want your questions. We want that all to be done respectfully. And I think so far, everyone in the comments has been really cool about asking very interesting questions. Would you agree, Yuval?
Yes, definitely. Full backlog. We have a full backlog of questions to address. So.
Yeah, and we're going to try to tackle one of those today. It's one that this is one of my personal favorites. I'm glad it came up so many times. Why did Safe redefine the Scrum Master role? And so, Yuval, let's start with the why. Maybe we'll get into the how and some of the mechanics and the principles, but just as much as you can speak to it. Why did the Safe powers that be decide that what's in the Scrum Guide is not exactly what they're going to put into the Scaled Agile framework?
Yeah, so maybe it makes sense to actually start with what changes were made so we can understand the why.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest change between the Scrum Guide, Scrum Master, the professional Scrum Master, and the Safe Scrum Master is that the Safe Scrum Master is more of a focal point. They're expected to do everything that the professional Scrum Master is expected to do, where, have all the choices, wear all the hats, operate from all of the stances of a coach, a mentor, a teacher. All of that is great. Beyond that, the Safe Scrum Master is more of a focal point for the team. You could even say more like a technical lead, manager for the team. You could still see it as a leader who serves, the way we describe it in the Scrum Guide. So I don't think there's a huge difference from that perspective. But what Safe did was what a lot of organizations do, if we're honest about it. They struggle to figure out this weird role, the Scrum Master role. It is a weird role, right? And in most organizations, the Scrum Master takes on more than just removing impediments for the team, takes on some active leadership, active project management roles for the team. Whether we talk about it, in the Scrum Guide or not, that happens in the trenches. And what Safe did is it actually brought that real world practice from the trenches into the definitions in Safe. Why did they do that? I wasn't there when that decision was made, but like many other decisions, Safe is trying to streamline the path of change for organizations that are trying to become more agile. Safe is taking the approach of evolution rather than revolution. If you remember back in the day when, there was this huge argument around, is the right approach to change management the Scrum, burn all your ships approach? Kanban provided, a more evolutionary approach of start with what you have, respect the current way things are working, respect the current roles, but agree to pursue evolutionary change. Safe is actually closer to Kanban from a change management perspective. And I think a lot of Agilists don't really realize that. Safe is respecting the way things are done to a fault sometimes.
Sure.
And if you're respecting the way things are done too much and not challenging the comfort zone, you would not change. So what you need is to start from a certain place, but pursue evolutionary change, move more to operate more from a coaching mindset, from a servant leadership mindset, and kind of over time put aside the classic management, project management choices that these people are used to make.
So how does Safe define that path? So what I'm hearing you say is, and I want to make sure I've got this right. from a safe perspective, the Scrum Master is expected to do all of the things that we would teach in professional Scrum, but the safe powers that be, they said, look, in the trenches, this is a very difficult transition. We have people still acting as managers, team leads, project managers. Let's codify some of that, and then over time expect more. Is that the case?
Over time, expect less of that.
More of the servant leadership,
and
right?
More
Right.
of the servant leadership. Yes, that's more or less how it's described. Also, if you look at the framework definition, maybe even if we open scaledagilephremawork.com and go to the Scrum Master page,
sure,
you won't have that much of an argument with what's written there. I mean, I haven't looked recently, but we won't have too much of an argument there. Our main argument would be with how this is practiced and with the emphasis the people have. So it's really important for people that are implementing SAFe to emphasize the Scrum Master choices. I think it would be great if all SAFe Scrum Masters actually get exposed to the content of the professional Scrum Master, and especially the professional Scrum Master, advanced to content, class, mindset. Scrum Masters in SAFe are exposed to advanced facilitation techniques and liberating structures, and that's even part of the SAFe classes. I don't think it's as evil as, people portray to be, and I don't think the gap is as big as people portray to be.
What do you think is the biggest gap? Like, so these horror stories about a safe Scrum Master, they don't come out of thin air, right? And so there's got to be some very direct language where you would say, yeah, this kind of makes sense for people to be a little upset.
The focal point is one of the biggest gaps that I see. So in SAFe, the Scrum Masters are the team's representative for the Scrum of Scrums, for example. They are the focal points in PI planning. That when you make those choices, you put these people into a mode of leading the team, and the team actually relinquishing some power to the Scrum Masters rather than being self-managed. For me, that's the biggest gap.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you made a really good note here. If we look at the SAFe Scrum Master, the way it's defined on the website today, there's talk of, the primary focus is helping a team achieve its goals. I think from a professional Scrum standpoint, we can agree with that. Mm-hmm. There's various backgrounds that we come from, and I think that's fair as well. The attributes: empathy, conflict negotiation, servant leadership, mentorship, transparency, and coaching. I don't know what I would argue with there. I think those things are all true. And these are
I suspect the responsibilities is where we'll start to find some beef.
Yeah, the responsibilities are kind of interesting, right? There are some critical responsibilities. Building high-performing teams, improving flow, supporting iteration, execution, facilitating PI planning, and improving art performance. I think this is where some of it gets interesting, right?
Yeah, but again, at this level, there's not too much. I mean, they have an active role in facilitating PI planning across teams, but that's okay. I think that's a great, facilitation is one of the superpowers of a great Scrum Master. So it's only natural for the Scrum Masters to help a team of teams plan. I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah.
The issue go ahead.
Oh, please. No, you're the expert. I want to hear where you were going.
I guess the issue for me, and I'm actually encouraged by the direction that the language around the Scrum Master has taken in SAFe over time. And, maybe if we talk in a couple of months, we'll even like the language a bit more. No promises. But there's definitely the legacy of the expectation from a Scrum Master in SAFe, which is to be the team's focal point representative. And I like the fact that that's being de-emphasized. at least in the framework. If we will go and visit, 10 companies that are implementing SAFe right now, I would guess that 7 or 8 out of them, assuming, they're the typical SAFe implementation that's not run by professional Scrum trainers, we will probably find Scrum Masters that are, the focal point for the team, where the team is asking the Scrum Masters to do much more for them than we would recommend.
Yep.
That's not in the framework, but that's there in the trenches. But if we go to 7 or 70 Scrum teams that are not being coached or trained by professional Scrum trainers or, Scrum Alliance trainers, we'll probably find a lot of Scrum Masters that, look very similar.
Yeah, I think it's a fair call out for an anti-pattern in the community, right? The Scrum Master that's still being a project manager, the Scrum Master that's diminishing the product owner, the Scrum Master that's trying to be the team boss. Like we see that. In fact, Todd and I, we wrote a lot about it in Fixing Your Scrum, right? So I definitely have to concede that that's a true thing. To codify it, though, is interesting. And I think some of the impacts, it's interesting when we look at preparing for PI planning. Like you'll see that the SAFe Scrum Master is ensuring that the team's briefed by program managers and stakeholders, and they're facilitating aspects of PI planning. The RTE is facilitating others. And I think one of the things that you run into when you diminish or when you amplify the Scrum Master role and the focus on the Scrum Master, you see the product owner gets severely diminished, right? And so maybe that'll be the subject of another video. Why is the product owner more tactical at a story level than elevated in professional Scrum? But I think that's when the Scrum Master is out of balance, you would almost think inherently the product owner would have to be pushed down. Does that make sense?
I see that sometimes. The thing I really agree with you on is that there's a bigger gap on what product ownership looks like in SAFe versus professional Scrum. And that's definitely a video, one of our next episodes.
Yep.
I guess, if we kind of step aside from what we see in this document, which, I think is not as evil as people portray it to be. I think the real challenge that SAFe highlights is that organizations struggle to find who are these Scrum Masters.
Yeah.
Who should be wearing the Scrum Master hat, take on the Scrum Master accountability in the organization. And it's an ongoing challenge. And does it make sense to have people dedicated to this accountability? Does it make sense for people that, for looking at the Scrum Master accountability as what leadership in the organization looks like moving forward? I think that's where we should focus on. It's not necessarily a SAFe conversation, but it's a conversation that we need to have in the Scrum world, in the Scrum community. And rather than just stick to the puristic, Scrum Master needs to be doing these things and, should never be the manager and all that.
But I will push back. I will push back just a little bit, right? So in SAFe, the Scrum Master is expected to be that team representative amongst other teams. So when they go to a Scrum of Scrums or an Art Sync, or one of these activities, it is the Scrum Master who is going and representing the team, not a product owner, not a developer, which can be interesting. And so I do think there is this elevated type of stance. The thing is, I'm not sure, and this will get me shot in some circles, but I'm not sure I have such a big issue with that. What I would like to see, and I think you've highlighted this as well, is the transparency behind that decision. It would be interesting if SAFe would just come out and say, look, a Scrum Master in a scaled Agile environment is a delivery manager. So grab a delivery manager and teach them how to be a Scrum Master, because this is what we need, given that we have PI planning, we have the Art Syncs, we have Scrum of Scrums. this is what we need to facilitate all of these other layers. I think that then at least we could look at it and say, okay, that's what they're doing. And the rest of this, while we may not agree with it, it makes sense. Does that resonate?
Yeah. So I could see a world where the Scrum Master in Safe was not called Scrum Master, where they were called Scrum Leader, Agile Team Lead, Team Captain, whatever.
Just call it Agile Delivery Manager, because that's honestly what they've defined, right?
They've defined a mix, to be honest.
Okay.
They defined somebody that is a team level coach or flow coach for the team and does some aspects of delivery lead for the team. Of course, for any one of these things, there's always the question, why did they keep the Scrum Master name? And I think it's clear why did they keep the Scrum Master name. The Scrum Master name has a lot of value and a lot of context behind it. So it's, do we leverage what everybody knows about Scrum Master and bring all these choices and value into a safe environment, but we need to tweak it a bit to make it work in our environment? Or do we use a different name and lose all of the value, both business value and actual know-how and expertise that people associate with the Scrum Master role?
Well, there's commercial value.
When we make that decision, there's commercial value for sure, yes.
So, and it also, I mean, if I'm a Scrum Master taught by, as you mentioned, of course we're scrum.org, but we throw Scrum Alliance in there too. If I'm taught by one of those organizations, I've been given a pretty good foundation of Scrum. And if I see, Scrum Master over in Safe, then I'm comfortable with that movement. If I see a different title, so there are, I appreciate you acknowledging that. There's some commercial aspects, there's some business aspects, there's some team aspects. The focus is going to be, I think, the big sticking point, especially in the professional Scrum community, right? We actually have the advanced Scrum Master class, the PSM2, where the Scrum Master question mark is directive. The Scrum Master question mark is making decisions for the team and doing those Scrum of Scrums as a representative and judging the work and being directive. And we see that we teach that as an anti-pattern that we're trying to improve through the empowered Scrum Master who is there to enable teams to be effective and high performing. And so I think that's going to be that's always going to be that part where the shirt gets snagged a bit and the thread comes undone, right? Is it a surmountable difference? I think so. But I would imagine it's going to be because Safe will continue to refine their thoughts on the Scrum Master, not the other way around.
I agree. And, personally as a professional Scrum trainer and a Safe fellow, I wrote about improving Safe through some of the ideas from professional Scrum. And if you take my, Safe classes, I talk about, this difference as a gap that is worthwhile thinking about. And over time, maybe start as being the focal point for your team, but over time, make the choice not to be, make the choice to stay away from that and let the team send whoever's the right person to the art scene, to the Scrum of Scrums. We changed the Scrum of Scrums over time to be more of a retrospective, continuous improvement community of practice rather than the place where, delivery management and execution is discussed. So there are things that we are doing to help organizations leverage the value of, the Scrum Master as defined in the Scrum Guide in parallel to Safe.
Yeah. And I've gone ahead and put your article up here. I think you've been very transparent about the areas that you see opportunities for improvement. And I think that's great. We'll put links to all of these posts in the show notes. I think it's important to check these out. But yeah, where I'm landing with this. And so Yuval, I appreciate you talking through the differences. The why makes sense, right? The why, I may not agree with it, but I understand where they got it, right? So in especially LKU, right? They say start where you're at and then move forward. So that's one flavor of Kanban. It's a little different than pro Kanban, but so start where you're at. And what what the safe position, I think what I've heard is their position is, look, most Scrum Masters are project managers trying to grow into servant leaders. Is that fair? And so since they're there, let's define it in a way that they can actually get some success in, that it resonates, but we're aspiring to diminish some of those more directive controlling behaviors. We're trying to amplify some more of those professional Scrum behaviors. And over time, we should see, hopefully in the SAFe literature, more push towards the professional Scrum side, or the more empowered Scrum Master side, and more of a diminishment of those old practices we're trying to move away from.
Exactly.
Well, and so this will play into future videos, because I think one of the big critiques that we saw in the comments, and by the way, all of you were awesome in the comments. Tons of questions that'll keep us going for a while. Some people will say you implement SAFe so that you never have to change. And so that's something that we're definitely, I think that's the elephant in the room that we're going to have to address at some point.
People do, right?
What's
some
that?
Some people implement SAFe to avoid really changing.
Sure.
Like some people implemented the Kanban board to, say, yeah, we have a Kanban board. We don't have to go through the hard job of implementing Scrum, which also means you're not really changing. You're not really improving.
Right. I think most frameworks we pick, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, or SAFe, they're going to identify problematic areas, right? And so now we have to decide, do we address those or not? So I think that's ubiquitous. That is across all implementations. Very cool. Anything else that I'm missing? Anything else that you're missing? What else should we say about the Scrum Master role in a SAFe context, Yuval? How about the class? I know you teach the Scrum Master class for SAFe, correct?
Occasionally, yeah.
And so what
I
would you
teach
say?
the professional Scrum Master class more often.
Right. So when you think about the two courses, if you had, and it might be the same, that the focus is different. If you think about the philosophy, the flow, the undercurrent, and the overall messaging of each class, like what would stick out as like the main differentiator?
Yeah.
Besides the professional Scrum course being amazing.
The SAFe Scrum Master class is also amazing when I teach it. So
yeah. But if you think about the philosophies between the two and the
So the professional Scrum Master class is probably the best introduction to Scrum and empiricism out there. Okay? No, not even a question. The SAFe Scrum Master class is sometimes people's introduction to the world of Agile. Sometimes they go through another class. The class does introduce Agile and agility. It focuses much more on the team level agility practices, the activities, the responsibilities, the characteristics of a Scrum Master, both with team level agility, but also how does that apply in scale? So beyond team level activities, what's your role as a Scrum Master when it comes to the art, to PI planning, to coordinating with other teams? That's something that is not really a conversation topic in the PSM class. Any sort of scaling is, only only a couple of minutes are spent on scaling. There are some fun exercises around that, but it's not a major topic in the PSM class. I think that's the major difference. A person coming out of a PSM class, professional Scrum Master class, would leave with a very deep understanding of empiricism and agility. I'm not so sure about that they would come out of a SAFe Scrum Master class and seeing transparency, inspection, adaptation.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I think another difference, and I want to ask this because I don't want to assume, in our professional Scrum Master courses, the level 1, level 2, there's a lot of talk about how the Scrum Master is the Agile coach to the entire organization. So not only is the Scrum Master a team level role, we have accountabilities to product, we have accountabilities to the org. We're trying to facilitate and create an environment where Scrum can exist. We're also mean, we're the change agent. So we're working outside of the Scrum bubble. Would you say that in SAFe, the Scrum Master is expected to coach up and down the org chart and work with leadership and escape that team bubble?
No, they're not. So similar to the pragmatic choice, I'll say, in SAFe to separate product ownership and product management, which is a separate conversation.
Yep.
There's another pragmatic choice to separate Scrum Master, release train engineer, which is like the chief Scrum Master for the Agile release train, and the SAFe program consultant, which is sort of a more generic coach for the organization, not even necessarily a specific Agile release train. The accountability we talk about in the Scrum Guide is kind of spread between these three roles.
Yeah, and it feels like a hierarchy gets built. I'd imagine the Scrum Masters roll up to the RTE, and the RTE is to that overall coach.
I mean, it's a value stream network rather than organizational structure. So SAFe doesn't really tell organizations how to design the hierarchy. It has no opinion about that, but that's what you see in a lot of organizations.
So in practice. And so this is probably another one of those sticking points for Agile practitioners where they say we've created hierarchy amongst these Agilists. We've basically separated two key accountabilities from a Scrum Master. And so
the same people that have an issue with Agile coach versus Scrum Master probably have an issue here as well.
Yeah, we're just talking through it. I'm not trying to judge it. I'm just but I think it's good to pull some of this apart and see from a practical stance where some of the misconceptions and where some of the fair criticisms come from, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest about it, I think that in the Scrum.org world as well, we see it as a journey for a Scrum Master that over time they grow the chops and the kahunas to coach the organization. It's not something we expect out of, somebody that, is coaching their first team. SAFe provides more structure and prescription around that for good and bad. Yep. Some organizations appreciate the prescription. For some organizations, it's a bit too much.
So what is it within SAFe or within the SAFe courses or the literature, like anywhere in that ecosphere or eco cycle, where's that thing that provokes a Scrum Master to aspire to be more than just where they start? Because in the Scrum.org world, we have the PSM2 that really provokes that whole change of, hey, you're doing mechanical zombie Scrum, you're doing bad Scrum, the way that Todd and I defined it in our book, like whatever you want to call it. We are actively and regularly provoking these Scrum Masters to bust out of the project manager mold, to work in the organization, to be a great partner to a product owner. So what is it in the SAFe world that acts as that lure or lever or magnet to kind of pull that Scrum Master out of that lull of where they're at and into something better?
There are a couple of things. One is even the fact that in the framework there is this concept of the Scrum Master for the Agile release train, the RTE role. That's a very clear next step for Scrum Masters. They see SPCs as something that they want to aspire to, and each one of these is both a class and a role in the enterprise, or an accountability that they could have. Sure. Diving deeper as a Scrum Master, there's the SAFe Advanced Scrum Master, which is somewhat comparable to the advanced professional Scrum Master curriculum, in being something that helps Scrum Masters dive deeper into how to show up effectively with the team of teams.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I mean, and so again, it's a more prescribed path of advancement than what you would see in a typical Scrum implementation. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so definitely pros and cons there, right? I think a lot of the prescription fits well in mid-size traditional organizations. I think in future videos, we'll talk about how some of the tech giants have evolved past that. And I have a very specific thought on why that is. And I can't wait to do that video and shoot that idea past you. But I think in this case, look at where the modern organization is, find something that can sit on top of it that's hopefully minimal and lightweight, and provoke through courses and prescription and some hierarchy a better way of performing over time. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think we've answered the question. What do you think, Yuval?
I hope.
Well, you know what's nice about this whole feedback loop thing? If we haven't, everyone will let us know in the comments. And so, Yuval, thanks for going through that question. I know it's not always an easy one to answer, but I think you did great. You know, why did SAFe redefine the Scrum Master role? Where there's a lot of good reasons in here and some pros and cons as we talk through it. Check out the sites in the description. Everything that we showed we'll link to. We want you to read into this. We'll get some professional Scrum ideas up there too. We want you to dig into this and do some of your own research, right? Don't listen to us. Use us as a guidepost to learning more. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes where Yuval and I continue to work through this whole breaking the SAFe concept. Check out the description for more about Yuval, myself, courses, some resources. Keep up on social, right? You're going to learn more about what we're doing through Twitter and LinkedIn and maybe even some Facebook. And keep your questions coming. That comment section, let us know your thoughts on this episode. Did we answer the question? Do you have other questions that this episode has sparked? Keep them coming. And as long as there are good questions for us to dig into, we will continue to do videos. So for Yuval, I'm Ryan. Go forward, do a little research, check out the Scrum Master role within SAFe. Leave us your great questions and comments below, and we'll see you next time.